Thanks so much for being here. This is my favorite time of the year. We have a lot in common, you and I. I'm going to guess, like me, you don't fit very squarely in any occupational box. So when someone comes up innocently at a barbecue and says, "What do?" You start to talk, and then you see the fear and the panic in their eyes when they realize that you're going to talk for a while. And it's a problem for me. And as the director of the Business Innovation Factory, I have the honor and the pleasure of doing everything. Someone called this week, and I answered the phone, and they were like, Melissa Withers? It's like, yeah, I answer phones. That's what I do. I do stuff. So I have a trouble explaining what I do. This is my son, Aiden, and he has given me an excellent way to describe what I do. One day, I'm cooking shallots, and he comes up to me and he says, "Mommy, what are you cooking?" I said, "Shallots, babe." And he says, "What's a shallot?" Like, it's kind of like an onion, only it's mellow and mild. And he pauses and he looks at me thoughtfully and he says, "Mellow, mild, like Daddy." And I said, "Yeah, babe, like Daddy." And he pauses and he looks at me and goes, "Not you, you're an onion." So, I'm an onion, so there you go. Growing up, I had a solid, if not totally sensible plan for my career. I wanted to be a writer who on the weekends dabbled in microbiology. There were two very important, indisputable truths in my community at the time and the place when I grew up, though. One was that writers were poor, and two, scientists, especially lady scientists, were unforgivably nerdy. So the career counselors at our school were very good at trying to steer us into a different direction. So one year, they administered a Scantron test. Anybody remember the Scantron with the number 2 pencils? And this test was going to go into some 400-pound IBM mainframe, and then it was going to tell you the 3 things you should be when you grow up. I don't know how a Scantron test can ever speak to a person's occupational potential, but I very vividly remember getting my results. And the test told me that I should be a dental hygienist, a landscaper, or if all else failed, a defense attorney. So as I held these results in my hand, I knew I had a problem. So this was exactly the ammunition my guidance counselor needed to push me in a different direction. So in my first move as an onion, I lied. And I told them that the test said that I should be a writer. And like every good origin myth, it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I am here, which is pretty awesome. Back in 2005, when Saul and I had the first BIF summit in a hotel ballroom down the street, I'd be lying if I told you we really knew what we were doing. We didn't really know. We had just the barest essentials of what the organization would turn out to be. But the vision was really there. Saul has incredible clarity of vision. He is frustratingly myopic in pursuing this vision. And despite all that's changed over the years, Saul has less hair, I have more wrinkles, I have an incredibly prescient child who says disturbingly powerful things to me all the time. The one thing that hasn't changed is our commitment to this mission and our commitment to the kind of innovation that inspires BIF. This is what we are all about. And we see a huge difference between incrementing around the edges and pursuing transformation. And the other thing that hasn't changed is our passionate belief that the fastest path to accelerating this kind of innovation is to get off of the whiteboard and into the real world. And again, myopic vision about this. And it was this guiding principle that moved us along. So it's easy to gloss over this idea of real-world laboratories, but it's really a very important part of our story. And for the rest of my time with you today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that and how that vision has evolved over the years. Saul taught me that some very important lessons that fear of failure and fear of disruption are incredibly powerful barriers to change. And when you apply this to areas like healthcare and education and energy and the things that we care about at BIF, it's really easy to see why progress is so slow. And I think it's also why so often we see tweaks instead of transformation. It's just so much easier to increment along the edges than it is to disrupt the system. I mean, I go to work every day and resist change. And every day, this man disrupts me. So we really seek to change the dynamic. So what if you could dream big, but start small? What if you could shoot for the moon, but minimize risk? What if we could start to take these ideas for transforming how we deliver value in these really important areas of high social impact? And what if you could do that in a controlled environment where you could really minimize your risks? This is standard operating procedure in industries now, but it's just not standard operating procedure in healthcare, in education, in energy, in any of the systems that most powerfully affect our health, our wellness, and the general strength and vitality of our communities. We just don't experiment, and there's no place to do it, so we live with what we got, and we tweak around the edges. This is not acceptable. So this is the vision for us. This was the vision even back in 2005 when it was just us being crazy, kooky, in our garage, not unlike a maker. We wanted to create these real-world laboratories where our partners could come together and explore new ideas for transforming how value is delivered to the citizens that live at the center of our most mammoth and, in many cases, dysfunctional systems. So, despite all that has changed, our commitment to this mission has not changed. But what has changed is our approach for how we deliver on this mission. When we first started, Saul and I would do almost any project that we could get our hands on because it was a way to make and to practice. But over time, we were able to evolve our capabilities, add core team to our staff, and move towards our ultimate goal, which was to create these sustainable platforms for doing this kind of project activity. We call them experience labs. And it's a core. Most of you in this room may never have even heard this because you heard about the summit. But this is really what I get to do all day when this event isn't happening. So it's a really, really important part of who we are. And pretty exciting. The most exciting thing, I think, about the labs is they're sort of the hearthstone of our kitchen. It's where the sausage gets made. And I described it last week to someone. It's sort of like the UFC for innovators. And it's definitely sort of a cage match. And if you're in the trenches trying to do this kind of work, it's sweaty, it's exciting, and every once in a while you get your head knocked off. But when you win, victory is sweet. Our methodology in these labs is deceptively simple. I say deceptively because I am confused every day when I get to work about what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. But the core principles, I think, are pretty straightforward. You put the user at the center. You document and understand that user experience. You draw from that insights into opportunities for improving that experience. And then instead of just putting that in a report and finishing, you try to take those ideas into the real world in a manageable way and start to explore and iterate around those solutions with the end users themselves. Again, very common in the athletic shoe industry, for example, incredibly uncommon in education, healthcare, energy, entrepreneurship. And then you do this thing where you sort of wash, rinse, and repeat. And you do it over and over and over again until you just can't take it anymore. I think that our Student Experience Lab is one of my favorite examples of this idea in action because it's very close to my heart, and it also allows me to get out into the world and interact with students, which I adore. You've probably figured out that we've loaded this program with young people because that's how we roll. So the Student Experience Lab was launched last year, and we had the opportunity at the first phase of our work to go out and work with 40 students, students from 40 schools across the country. And we went out and used some pretty classic design research techniques to capture that experience. We use a lot of digital media. Storytelling is a really important part of what we do, even in our project work. We then organized all of those insights. We went through an analytics process to try to assign some kind of value to qualitative insights. We were then able to organize all of those insights around a set of experiential themes that seemed to be consistent across demographics and different types of students. And then we created some ideas that came from that on ways that we could start to rethink that experience. And then we packaged it all up and we made it free. So you can go to the website and see that first phase of work, and it's really powerful. There's dozens of first-person videos of students telling you why they're struggling, and oftentimes they do tell you things that you already know, but sometimes the way they tell you just changes something in you, and it really helps you see a new pathway. And we've found it to be an incredibly powerful way to change the conversation about innovation in education, to reorient it around the student, instead of orienting the conversation around the institutions who provide the services. And so that was a very auspicious start to our work, and it laid a very strong foundation for the work that we've been able to start to do in 2010. And there are two really exciting things that we are starting on now. The College Board is here with us today somewhere, and they are just an extraordinary organization that has redefined their innovation mandate. They are partnering with us to take that initial work and to create a deeper understanding around the experience of young men of color, so Asian American men, Latino American men, African American men, and I think I forgot one of them. But the experience of this particular group of students is really, really important. If it's a national crisis, what's happening to young men of color in this country. And we'll be working with them, traveling all across the country to capture the experiences of these students and bring those experiences to life. And then the College Board, I think, is going to be an amazing partner on working with us on the part that comes after that, which is taking some of the opportunities for intervention and really putting them to test in the real world. Which brings me to another really exciting opportunity for me in 2010. The Lumina Foundation for Education was an initial investor in the lab, and they've come back in 2010 to reinvest. And this time, we're actually really getting started on a R&D project where we'll be doing a set of experiments in Utah with some new colleagues that we just connected with out there. And this represents for us sort of a climax in that we finally have the foundation, the methodology, and now the credibility to go out into the real world and use our approach to enlist a cohort of students in a real-world experiment, and then bring those learnings back into the lab and use it to power more and more growth. So when we started back in 2004, I didn't know a lot. I didn't know I was an onion. I didn't know that I would get into this crazy space. I feel like I'm closer to what I wanted to be when I grew up than when I took that Scantron test. And I'm pretty sure this is what you get when you put two onions together. So it's exciting, and I thank so many of you who have been a part of our evolution. And I hope this gives you just a little more insight into the story of how we began and where we're going. And I look forward to talking with you more about it down the line. So thank you very much.